for now. So we'll go ahead and get started. Allow me to welcome you to today's webinar discussion on Slovakia's heating and cooling sector and pathways to a sustainable transition. So I'd like to recall the past year of kind of key stakeholder meetings and consultations that GLOBSEC has been fortunate enough to facilitate around the building renovation sector in the context of Slovakia's recovery and resilience facility and economic recovery, both for the public and private housing sectors. So this will absorb nearly half of the 2 billion in recovery fund green investments for Slovakia. So an absolutely critical part of national recovery, which is recognized by the government and other stakeholders from the private sector and banking sectors. So we were involved in the methodological handbook, setting the standards, one-stop shops, financial instruments, all of these tools that are necessary to ensure value for money, and of course, contributing to Slovakia's 2030 climate targets. And there we are. Okay, so I have the video. I'm not sure about, okay, there we go. Sorry about that for the technical difficulties. So of course, we are all aware of the energy efficiency first principle and the importance of demand reduction, or not only for meeting climate targets, but of course, for energy savings. So for this discussion, of course, we're shifting to the supply side, to the largely, I would say, inefficient and definitely fossil-based heating and cooling systems, which are not unique to Slovakia or necessarily even Central and Eastern European region, though certainly more prevalent. But across the EU, the heating and cooling sector certainly presents a real challenge. So according to the European Commission, just to share a few fun facts, about 50% of the EU's final energy consumption is used for heating and cooling. So this is the largest end-use sector, and about 2/3 across the EU is fossil-based. I think it's about 70% in Slovakia. And as I'm sure our speakers will touch on, Slovakia is the second most gasified member state behind the Netherlands. So as I read, I think some 90% of the population is connected to a gas network. So of course, this will be something, big part of the discussion is whether this is kind of a blessing or a curse when it comes to energy transition. And furthermore, we can look at the current renewable share in Slovakia, and again, which is prevalent across most of the region. You can see that biomass is the dominant renewable energy source within all of the available technologies. And of course, the sustainability of biomass is at the very least debatable. But what's not debatable, of course, are the negative impacts on local air quality. And so that's obviously another challenge when we're thinking about the transition in renewable energy sources in heating. Now coming back to the European Green Deal, for some context, as some of you are probably aware, the RED II, the Renewable Energy Directive, as part of the Fit for 55 package, has proposed raising the headline renewable energy share for the EU from 32 to to 40%. And of course, that spreads through the power sector, through heating and cooling, through transport, and specifically coming to heating and cooling, there is a target, a benchmark target for 2030 for nearly 50% of heating and cooling to be renewable based. Specifically in industry, there is a proposed benchmark for the 1.1% annual increase in renewable energy. For heating and cooling, 1.1% indicative annual increase to 2030. So there are very concrete benchmarks that have just recently been proposed, over the summer, 6 months ago, still being negotiated. And so that's kind of what we're looking at coming back to Slovakia. And we're incredibly fortunate to have 3 distinguished speakers today that are somewhat tasked with solving this very complex puzzle for Slovakia, that will share, what they think is possible in Slovakia, what the challenges are, what is needed. So if I could introduce the speakers, first we have Mr. Andrej Juriš, who is the president of URSO, which is Slovakia's regulatory body. Mr. Maroš Halama, who is Vice Dean for Research, Innovation, and International Relations at Košice Technical University. And last but not least, we have Ms. Gabriela Fischerova, who is the Director General for Climate Change and Air Protection at Slovakia's Ministry of Environment, who will be joining us a bit later. So the format is, we will have just the opening interventions, and we certainly would like to engage in discussion. So I encourage you to think of some questions, comments. Feel free to share them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we can call upon you. You can jump into the chat. So for now, if you could just stay muted, and we will move to Andrej. Andrej, can you flip off the mute?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Hi, Nolan. Thank you very much. Something happened with my camera, so I apologize. I will not be seen. But what I cannot show, I will try to compensate with the words.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So very happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation, and especially this topic, Fit for 55, and how it impacts heating and cooling sector. I think it's first of all very complex and very difficult interaction between those two, but also I would say very exciting. Because as a regulator, and I will in a minute introduce the organization which I represent. As a regulator, I think that the heating and cooling sector is the one which will probably be facing and will experience the most transition, from the current state of affairs, at least here in Slovakia, to the kind of a target state of affairs which we see is envisaged under the Fit for 55 kind of goals and direction. So let me just spend a few words on the organization I represent. I represent URSO, which is the energy regulator, energy and water regulator here in Slovakia. We regulate prices and so-called business conditions in electricity, natural gas, central heating and water sectors. And myself, I'm the chairman of the office. So coming back to the topic, there are, Nolan, as you outlined, there are many important dimensions in heating and cooling, and how does Fit for 55 impact the sector? There is a whole bunch of topics and issues related to the efficiency of housing and decarbonization of basically heating and cooling at the level of individual houses or kind of housing complexes, which deals with the energy efficiency of buildings and so on. This is the topic which is very important, but from the regulatory perspective, this is not at least our institution which is involved in these topics. We will support other institutions in Slovakia who are dealing with these topics, especially number of institutions within the auspices of the Ministry of Environment. Also in the recovery plan, there is a whole bunch of schemes to support the energy efficiency of houses, especially the low-income customers. And we will be supporting, and we are in very good discussion with the relevant authorities how to set up a scheme or kind of a criteria to define the customers who are in energy poverty, because this is the topic which is very important. Energy poverty in Slovakia has not been yet defined in the legislation. Number of very high, I think, very good studies have been done, especially by the Academy of Sciences of Slovakia. And we would like to take these outcomes from these studies and put it into a scheme which will define criteria, how to assess, how to evaluate which households define or are eligible for support under the category of energy poverty. And here we are dealing with issues like, okay, what is the expenditure on energy, so electricity, gas, and heating for a particular household? What is the income level of that household? What is for example, the size of the dwelling in terms of the square meters? What is the energy comfort of inhabitants within that dwelling, and so on and so on. So it's really a multi-parameter issue, which or kind of a question where we need to define particular parameters, put them together, and especially gather the relevant data. Because, for example, we as a regulator, we can get information about the expenditures at the household level for energy, but we as a regulator, we do not have information about the income levels. So this is part of either the social security institutions or income tax institutions. So this needs to be gathered and kind of a multi-sectoral working group created to put this forward. But to make a summary, so the idea within the next 12 months to prepare this criteria as a kind of a complex evaluation scheme, and then to support the agencies within the Ministry of Environment on targeting the energy poverty customers with the building renovations. The thing which is kind of the core of our job as a regulator, we are looking and we are regulating so-called central heating or district heating sector. So those heating generation companies and heating delivery companies, which basically deliver heat to households, especially the large apartment dwellings, but also to commercial and industrial customers. And here we have around 350 companies doing that in Slovakia, the so-called district heating companies, which are subject to the price regulation and also the business condition regulation in Slovakia. And many of them, they are participating in a scheme and in the support schemes defined by renewable legislation for support of so-called the high efficient cogeneration of heat, which means generating of heat and generating of electricity. And if I can share my screen for a minute, if it is possible, I would like to show you. If you can see that. It's in Slovak, but I will give you an outline, especially this pie graph. It's the installed capacity of all high efficient cogeneration plants in Slovakia. And you can see the fuel mix here. The blue one here, which is almost 50%, is natural gas. The next two largest ones are the natural gas in combination with coal, basically, these two. Then we have a brown coal, this yellow one, and then there is a heating oil, this one, and biomass. You see the small little green ones. It's a little small sliver of the pie. Basically, at the moment, is around 1% of the capacity of heating or cogeneration in Slovakia, which is being supported. And I'm showing it just to give you a flavor of where we are at the moment. And if you look at the goals of Fit for 55, so the little sliver, the green one, hopefully within next years, let's say decade, should basically take the I would say the big chunk of this pie, because this is the goal to expand, to support the green technologies to generate heating, and especially if we are designing new schemes to support high efficient generation. One of the aspects should not be only the kind of the heating efficiency as it is today, but also to include and integrate the parameters and aspects which deal with decarbonization, because this is the real way forward. So I wanted to show you as a kind of where we stand at the moment. You see, these are the numbers from 2020. So basically, last full year we have, and hopefully, if we all live in good health and we will meet like this 10 years ago, this chart will be completely different, and we will have a bigger share, hopefully a majority of the capacity from green technologies. Thank you very much. I'll just de-share it and continue.
Thank you, Andre. And just to clarify, that's district heating, correct?
Say it again, please.
That's district heating, centralized heating.
Exactly. This is a district heating cogeneration. So the plants the plants which are included here in this pie are the plants which are basically generating heat and electricity. There is a whole bunch of another heating generation solely, but even there, the majority of fuel which is used for pure heating generation is basically gas, natural gas. I think there is more than 50% gas share in that. And biomass, it's also relatively small in there. So this is the thing. And if I look forward to conclude my introduction, and I will be very happy to see or to talk with you and respond to any questions, is that we definitely, I would say, there are three main kind of challenges ahead of us. One, decarbonization of heating. Second is the decentralization or gradual decentralization of heating, and kind of to work in hand with current centralized way, at least especially this district heating, how it is, and to integrate new sources and kind of provide an open access to new sources into the district heating networks, in a way that we do not create an undue burden to customers, especially the customers who may switch off from district heating by doing their own decentralized solutions. But the chunk of fixed cost of central heating will then fall on the remaining and gradually decreasing number of customers, and the unit cost of district heating will go up, and it will become more and more uncompetitive compared to the alternatives. And this is the challenge which we need to find the right balance to maintain the efficiency and benefits of district heating, at the same time to open it to the green sources and decentralized sources. Yeah. And basically the third one, to gradually improve the efficiency of the overall sector. Yeah, the heating sector as such in Slovakia has probably the biggest savings potential. So this is what we will work in our regulation. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Andre. Really setting the table for us with Slovakia, raising a number of interesting points. And of course, yeah, that's the big dilemma, I think, around most of the region here is, some people, certainly in Hungary, have been opting out of the centralized systems. And then, of course, that increases the burden of network users. So, how do we address that with some type of a strict regulatory policy? And then on top of that, it is, modernization and incentivizing renewable inputs into systems, which, as you said, have immense potential. They certainly should be viewed as assets. And I think Gabriela has just joined us as well.
Yes.
Welcome, Gabriela. Maybe we could, hello, all right.
Hello.
Nice to see you. So we just had a nice introduction from Andre, and I thought maybe now that you're here, we can shift over to you, and maybe you can tell us, a bit more from inside the ministry, how you are kind of perceiving the challenge in Slovakia, and also, of course, what's happening in Brussels with the European Commission, and just kind of, provide the perspective for us, and hopefully leading us into a nice discussion as well.
Oh, that's a big responsibility. So first of all, I would like to make clear that we are aware that we have to move away from the natural gas. The question is how, when, and what would be the process. So I'm not sure that abandon natural gas immediately is the proper way, especially in respect with the air quality issue, which Slovakia is now facing, as you probably know. So our priorities are set as first to move away from coal, then make energy efficiency improvements as much as possible. And in the meantime, we rely on technology developments and new ways how to use the existing infrastructure, especially with respect to gasification. So I do not see the natural gas as let's say, the biggest sinner with respect to climate change. We are aware of its effects and so on, but still we need some transitional period. And when I say some, I really cannot say how long, 10 years, 20 years. I hope not more, but still the infrastructure in Slovakia is pretty dense. I think we are second in Europe, with the Netherlands only to be on the third place. So and these are assets. This is a lot of money buried in the ground, and so I think leave it now and let it rotten and go to pieces. We never get back on the same stage as now. So I would prefer, let's keep it, let's make it as efficient as possible, and let's find the technologies which could move or either bring in biogas or synthetic fuel or hydrogen or what. Central heating in Central Europe and in Slovakia is pretty popular, or well, common. And from the point of view of efficiency of measures for reducing emissions, and now I'm not speaking only about the greenhouse gases, but again on basic pollutants, I think it's much more efficient than to have thousands and thousands small diversified sources, which are definitely less efficiency in terms of thermal input and also in terms of emissions. How to do it? Well, that's the big question, and we try to use as much money as possible from Modernization Fund for improving both fuel base and also infrastructure to make it more attractive for consumers. I think there was in the previous presentation, Mr. Juris mentioned something that people are disconnecting from central heating because they feel that the prices are too high. But with I believe it's reconstruction of pipelines that and together with changing of fuel, this might bring price back to the competitive basis, and together with maybe some help from legislation, but not some directive, you know, approaches that you cannot do this, you cannot do that, but more on supportive side. That might be a good alternative for getting people warm. And what is another possibility in I hope in couple of times, use it also for cooling. This is with climate change on progress. I think this would be quite inevitable in coming years. So there are some few first signs that district heating is considering these options and are examining possible technologies and costs and so on. So that would be also another benefit for the pipelines which are existing. Something else, or that's enough?
Well, maybe if you could just elaborate a bit more actually on air quality, the legal question maybe that Slovakia or Bratislava is facing, maybe.
Yeah, well, as I said, we are facing a legal issue with air quality. European Commission put us to court because we are not complying with the air quality standards, especially for fine particulate matters, PM10. We have, well, they are putting us to court for 3 spots or three zones and 1 agglomeration. But this is generally problem in more parts of Slovakia. It is just that they are probably not equipped with enough monitoring stations and so on. Geomorphological situation in Slovakia is as it is: lot of hills, lot of valleys, lot of villages in these valleys, and together with unfavorable meteorological conditions, especially in January, February, or maybe sometimes in November, with inversions, we really have a bad quality, air quality in a lot of villages or cities, and this is mainly because of domestic heating. Domestic heating using solid fuels, let's call it wood, let's call it whatever. We have a lot of complaints from citizens that their neighbors are using some waste or some insuitable materials, and it's very difficult to deal with it, given the fact that we have something like 600,000 houses, so you can't have policemen in every chimney, basically. So we are now preparing, we have prepared the new Act on Air, which is now in preliminary, what it is called in English, I don't know, for commentary procedure. And soon it will be for commentary in public. And then we hope that by end of first quarter of the next year, it will be presented to the government. And this, we hope, would also or can also somehow remediate or help to remediate the situation which we have now.
Right. hopefully that's gets some momentum going. So we have a question. I have some questions, but let's save that for a discussion, and we can actually move to Mr. Maros Halama, if you'd like to provide some of your thoughts, inputs, and I think kind of focusing on gas infrastructure, modernization. Floor is yours, Maros.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation for this important event. And what I would like to reflect is on this gas infrastructure, on existing gas infrastructure, and how we can decarbonize this sector. Because from our position, we are working a lot at Technical University and with cooperation with Slovak Academy of Science on R&D activities, which are related to really this topic. So we represent also Slovakia in Hydrogen Europe in working groups infrastructure and working group energy, which are now doing this kind of legislations for this decarbonization of existing gas infrastructure. So I think it's to be published on 14th of December. So in 7 days, it will be the decarbonization package. It's called the CARB package for gas industry. And we'll deal with all these aspects, rules for transmission, distribution, supply, and storage, for example, of hydrogen in this gas sector. So what we are doing very intensively is try to find if existing infrastructure, pipeline infrastructure in Slovakia is compatible with hydrogen. So first aspect is for example, blending of hydrogen into existing natural gas pipelines in some percentage. Yeah, there are some research activities, also pilot demonstration link in the rest of world with 5%, 10%, and some with 20% of hydrogen in natural gas pipeline. So imagine it's a minus 20% decarbonization action plan. And it seems it somehow works, but it is on different kind of materials, different kind of grade of steel, maybe different kind of well. So we need to treat this. It is compatible also in Central Europe region. And this is one aspect, so blending of hydrogen. The second aspect is that for transit, there is an initiative in the European Union where big companies transporting natural gas through Europe make hydrogen backbone plans, action plans, and I think it seems that until 2035 will exist hydrogen backbone in Western countries, going through Germany, Belgium, Holland, France, and Slovakia is also in this activity, but later on, I think it's 2040. With prepared with existing infrastructure. So nowadays, key action from our side is to join forces, academia, universities, and with strategical industry players, and to work on the IPCI projects, so projects of European common interest. We are now in third wave of before notification to the European Commission, and it's dealing with 100% hydrogen backbone or pipeline for this transit. So this is one of the key enabled technology, which also European Commission detect as a missing piece in this puzzle, how to decarbonize economy and how to fulfill Green Deal and all these Fit 55 activities and all these numbers. So this is only way how to make it accessible in a cheap way and on long distances. And I think recalculation is something in 11 cents per kilogram of hydrogen per 1,000 kilometers. So I think it's one of the best way how to transport this clean source of energy or energy carrier, let's say, to the industrial partners and sectors like steel, chemical industry, and later on the other sector. So I think this is one way how we can reach it, but still we need to do more research activities in it. So for example, Slovak gas industry distribution unit is running now 3 years project called Hydrogen Pilot, which detect all these blending activities. And Airstream as a transit will do this national research program next year, and maybe started to detect compatibility of existing hydrogen infrastructure for this retrofitting or repurposing of pipelines. So, but still we need to wait for this decarbonization package because legislation is missing, as was mentioned by Ministry of Environment. But we see a role of natural gas here because we are very gasified country, but it's one of the possibilities how to massive decarbonize not only domestic heating and cooling, but also other industrial sectors. And this is like I bridge to the environment, to atmospheric pollution, because it's hand in hand. Yeah, it's also this link with this particulate matter, because if you have clean energy carrier in the pipeline, and when you can make a heat from it, losing this particular matter from atmosphere. And it is also I link it with batteries and automotive sectors. I know that is not the key issue now, but also electric vehicles is the key in towns, because imagine you have a clean traffic, you have a clean e-cars which produce zero emission. Okay, we are charging somehow with source of energy, but when environment is totally clean against this traffic pollution. So it is a region or region existing in countries like Japan or in Saudi Arabia where it's totally clean. It's 100% electric cars. Yeah, and I think somehow we can bridge with or hypnotize with technologies like batteries, hydrogen technologies, and with to fulfill this Green Deal. So I don't know if I ask this question, but maybe you can go in detail later on if there is some question.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Maros. And actually, just a quick follow-up then, as I understand, the gas infrastructure systems are very unique, correct? I mean, member state to member state. So they really have to be assessed on their own, correct? To see what the cost efficiency is for, for kind of updating and modernizing in order to distribute hydrogen or a percentage of hydrogen, correct?
Okay, but first we need to detect if it is safe, and it must be publicly acceptable. So it will be only public acceptable if it will be safe. So we are doing on it very intensively, because it's a quick question. As you know, hydrogen is a small molecule. There is also a question rising now in Hydrogen Europe in one working group with, okay, if we have some leakage of hydrogen, how contributes to the whole cycle in atmosphere. Yeah? So it is not very easy from a chemical point of view, and there is no data on this. There is no data analytics because there is no long-term experience to with application of this kind of technology. So we need to wait, but I think it's good setting up in across Europe, because we join forces across countries. And this example, like project of European common interest, is the best practice, because all the R&D institute, all the strategic companies across Europe is join forces and bring the best from the best technologies on the market. So I hope that will be nice, over in few years will be more clear.
Yeah, wonderful. So that probably is more of a long-term consideration, or do you see that being a factor by 2030 with the green hydrogen?
Yes, exactly.
You think it could be a factor by 2030?
First, I think we need, as was mentioned, will be transition period. So maybe blending is the first action plan. And when we need to wait if existing infrastructure should be used for repurpose or retrofit for the pure hydrogen, or we need to build a new one. So still it's an open question, and it's a matter of investment in this sector. And but as you see, nowadays it's explosion of the prices of gas on the stock market. So it doesn't matter if it's go back to normal values or not, but volatility is here.
Yeah.
So we need to have a plan B or plan C, and hydrogen is one of this plan. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you again. So I think we have about 15 minutes here for a discussion. We already have one question coming in, and I think it's good to come back to kind of the financing options for one. So there's a question for Gabriela about the Modernization Fund. So for the fuel-based change, is the Modernization Fund kind of the main financial instrument? I've seen Slovakia's NECP, so you're identifying, EU funds fairly broadly, and then you do identify the Modernization Fund as well as the National Environmental Fund. Maybe you could share with us some more about the sort of financing options and instruments that you see.
Yeah, well, talking about money is always difficult, especially if they are not yours, or even maybe. Modernization Fund is one of the options. It's not the unique one, and also the central heating is not the uniquely eligible project for Modernization Fund. But it is, according to the Act on Emission Trading, 75% from priority projects are aimed for production of heat and electricity, basically mostly in central heating. When it comes to change of fuel, definitely we would like to push out coal. This is also in line with the environmental strategy, with the National Energy and Climate Plan, and with the vision of the largest, what they are now, association or whatever they do with of the 6 largest central heating plants. So I think there is no doubt that this is the way we have to go. The question is again on the pace and on the financing. So Modernization Fund is one of the options, and other options are European funds. But we are now on the verge of getting a new partnership agreement with the Commission. So we will see. And of course, there should be some own private sources. Definitely, this would not be on public money only, this whole transformation, but public money should basically leverage the investments, which would later on turn the whole economy to low or neutral, carbon neutral future. I'm not sure if this is perception or general perception that Modernization Fund will pay for it all. Just to give you the perspective, if we want to change the whole pipeline in Slovakia, we would need something like 2 billions, and the Modernization Fund for 10 years would have something like 1.5, 1.7. It depends on the price of the allowances. And as I said, it won't go all to this type of project. So definitely we need to look for other options. I'm not sure that the recovery plan has something like that in the text. Definitely Ministry of Environment has no such component under its responsibility. But something on renewable sources might be financed also from the recovery plan. Under the Modernization Fund, the projects which are financed may still use gas, if this was the under question, let's say. But this is not the primary aim of the project. There has to definitely be the energy efficiency improvement and substantial reducing of emissions. And I think in most of the projects which were which are considered to be financed from Modernization Fund, the gas is not the main fuel, but usually used or intended for use as some kind of backup or starter or these kind of things.
Right, and then maybe just to follow up again, as you mentioned, I think the 600,000 households. Could you comment on maybe the national strategy when it comes to heat pumps? And also, of course, geothermal, whether that's district heating or even, individual ground source heating. And I think the EU even has floated, a ban on the sale of gas boilers from 2025, for example. So what do you think about this kind of the individual heating and incentives?
Well, this increase of gas prices is not giving us good, let's say, public advertising, especially now when we started finally, or we want to start finally this program for replacement of all boilers with gas boilers due to improving the air quality. So we will do it anyway, but well. We are less optimistic when it comes to results. Nevertheless, there are other programs, and we would like to continue with them, which support replacement of coal or wood with, let's say, biomass, but with better efficiency, like for pellets or something like that, or thermal pumps. Heat pumps, which I think is quite the future for domestic heating, and I would support to go this way. The technology made a great leap. Looking back 10 years ago, for instance, the prices are also more reasonable than it used to be. It's similar like photovoltaic. 20 years ago, photovoltaic had, I don't know, immense price. It was total luxury to have 2 or 3 panels on the roof. Now you can pave the pavement with solar panels, and it's still worse. When it comes to geothermal, I think Slovakia has a great potential in geothermal, and I believe the future of central and domestic heating might be in geothermal. But this is again something which waits for new development in technology, similar to what Mr. Halama said about the hydrogen. So something similar we need in geothermal.
Do you think it will be an important piece to 2030 to meeting climate targets, or do you think it's still maybe more after 2030?
Well, after 2030, but not too far after.
Fair enough. Yeah, great. And then we have another question back to Maros. So this was referring to the energy density. So hydrogen has a lower energy density than natural gas, meaning that blending maybe makes a smaller contribution to lowering emissions. So this participant is saying maybe 5% blending with hydrogen would only displace 1.6% of gas demand. So Maros, can you say anything maybe more technically to the potential hydrogen blending compared to natural gas?
Mm-hmm. That's true. In this question, these numbers more or less it's good, but the point is that we do not reach 5% in transition zone. So we need to reach a minimum 20% of hydrogen in a gas infrastructure. So this is the project now running, which make it feasible or not. And there is another aspects, physical parameters, because on existing transit distribution, you have some pressure and gas flow. But if you change mix of these gases, or you go to hydrogen, you can also play with these pressures and gas flow. So it is not relevant, this comparison, because still the research projects are running, so you can play with different parameters, also with the diameter of pipelines. So there are four action plans or possibilities how to retrofit, repurpose pipelines, and all must be scale up somehow in pilot links, and when on more on polygons and something like this. So yeah, this is under observation now. Okay. But it's a relevant question, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then we just have a few minutes, so maybe we can circle back to Andre. And perhaps, just coming back to sort of the topical conversation of energy prices, heat and electricity prices. How do you see, the current volatility, maybe that's here to stay, as you mentioned? How does this maybe impact, the sort of price regulation choices? And this kind of energy poverty program you've mentioned, can this be kind of an accelerator? Does this present additional obstacles? Maybe you could just kind of provide us with some closing remarks here.
Okay, thanks for question. It's a very important but also very complex question. So let me just grab it, the most important points from my perspective. Yeah, I mean, the current situation in the energy market is just, I would say, unprecedented. It's kind of what I remember. We have not experienced for the last 10+ years such a volatility in the market, and especially such a huge increase in the energy prices, particularly gas, electricity, CO2 emissions within such a short time. And I think this is the biggest problem, or one of the biggest problems which we are facing as customers, and also as basically as societies, huge increase in prices. That means a huge increase in the cost in a very, very short time. And as a result, companies and as well as households, they did not have enough time to somehow adjust their behavior, adjust their consumption. And they are basically facing huge increases in their costs, energy costs, but without having enough preparation for that. And so obviously there are a number of factors behind it, and I think they have been said and basically described in many media and kind of public and expert kind of community, so I will not go on that. But from all what we see and all what we understand, and we had quite an intensive discussion with ACER, which is the European Energy Regulator, that this kind of a volatile and high price market should last until the end of the heating season, basically next year. So sometimes March, April, as the heating season goes down, and the demand for especially gas for heating will go down. So there should be somehow relief in the market. Also, the prices are expected to go down. I mean, not to the previous levels at the beginning of this year, or not even speaking 2020, which was a very, very kind of low price year because of the COVID. But from current, I would say crazy levels, it should go down dramatically. But I think looking forward for the next year or two, I think we will face, unless some structural changes happen, we'll face relatively high prices of energy. And it's really, really important then to first, we as a regulator, to provide the proper schemes for customers, especially households, to be protected from volatility. And also, as I mentioned, the energy poverty to prepare the scheme to identify and develop programs how to support vulnerable customers. And I will highlight vulnerable because these are the customers who do not have the means and ability to cope with these high prices. And we as a society, we as a regulator, and we as a society need to support them. And with the industry, we are preparing a number of kind of systematic changes, especially in some of the charges related to the recovery of subsidies to renewables, to somehow lower the burden of regulated prices on the industry. And that will be step by step.
Great. All right. Well, that takes us to our conclusion here. So I think, first of all, just thank you to our speakers. I think you've provided us with a lot of food for thought, not only for Slovakia, but of course for the region, for the wider EU. This is just a crucial topic, a crucial sector, very complex, but with a lot of promise. I think we'd all agree. So we'll also be producing at GLOBSEC an issue brief on Slovakia's H&C sector with some data, as well as some ideas, outlining some ideas for the sustainable pathway. And we hope to continue this kind of a conversation, even more of a regional context next year across our strategic forest. So thanks everyone for joining us. And of course, this recording will be made available on the website for distribution. So thanks again to the speakers. Have a lovely day, lovely week, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ciao.
The same to you, Nolan. And all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day.